Alright, this is lesson 8 for 8th grade, and today we're talking about perimeter and area, and this should be something they've seen before, with a little twist towards the end, but nothing too strenuous. Alright, excuse me. Alright, remember, when we're talking perimeter, we are talking about the distance around something. So, if we look at this floor, calls this the baseboard here. Distance around would be our perimeter, and the way that we find perimeter is we add up all the lengths of the sides. Area talks about the interior, whatever's enclosed by the perimeter, and that is in square units, and I'm going to point that out in a second. If we counted up all these tiles, that would be the area that we would get. We're going to find out that there's a shortcut to that. And when we're dealing with rectangles or squares or parallelograms, which we haven't gotten to yet, it'll be length times width. And we'll get into that in a second here. Okay, so if we do our counting method, how many feet of baseboard are needed to reach around the room? So around the room, that tells us right away that we're talking about distance around. And that's our perimeter. So perimeter, and it looks like we've got 4 by 5. So this is 4, 5, okay. And we're going to add up all of our sides. We've got 5 plus 4 plus 5 plus 4. And that's going to equal 18 yards. And remember, it's important to know what units we're working in, and that if we do mess that up on a test, you will be deducted a little bit, because units are a very important thing. You don't want to screw up what units you're in. Alright, how many square yards of carpet are needed to cover the floor? Whenever they're talking in square units, that means we're talking area. Area is always in square units. Okay? So, how many square yards of carpet are needed to cover the floor? Well, for now, we're going to go ahead and count. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. So we have 20 square yards. And that's what this looks like. 20 square yards. Now the shortcut would be to do 5 times 4 and get our square yards of 20, which we will get into. Okay. Alright. In this lesson we're only talking about rectangles, which makes things a little easier. Eventually we'll get into triangles and circles and other shapes and how to find areas of them. But for now, just rectangles. And we have specific formulas for perimeter and area of a rectangle. We have a length and a width, and they will be denoted by L and W. So we have, in a rectangle, 2 sides that are the same. So here's a length, a width, a width. So, to save us some time, we can just plug things into this formula. Perimeter will be twice whatever the length is. Since we have 2 of them, we have to multiply by 2. And then we're going to add that to twice the width. 2 widths. So, that's what we would do there for that formula. Area, just like we saw in the last problem, length times width. We'll just take length times the width, and that should give us the area. And once again, remember, square units for area. Alright? So, we'll move on. This is in their book, and it's also on my wall in the classroom. Let's take a look at this problem. Alright, find the perimeter of each room in yards. Okay, well, we already found this one. This was the first problem we did with the 5 by 4, but we'll do it again. Area here, perimeter here. 5 plus 4 is 9, plus 5 and 4 is another 9, and we get 18 yards. Area, 5 times 4 equals 20 yards squared. Alright. So now we have to find the perimeter and area of this one. So we have an 8 and a 10. Now let's try to use those formulas. Perimeter equals 2L 2W. So 2 times our length, which is 10, plus 2 times our width, which is 8, and we'll get 20, 2 times 10, plus 2 times 8, 16, 36. So perimeter should be 36 yards. And if we do area, we will do length times width. So 10 times 8, area is, let's do length times 8, 80 square yards. Okay, squared. Okay. I'm gonna erase my perimeter here. And once again, if you do forget how to do the perimeter formula, you can always count up and add all your sides. Alright, so we have the perimeter of each room, we have the area of each room. Now, see, this tripped up some students today. How does doubling the length, which we did, 4 to 8, 5 to 10, so we doubled the length and the width, how does that affect the perimeter? Well, let's look at our perimeters. We have a perimeter of 18 here and a perimeter of 36 here. Well, 36 divided by 18 equals 2. So we find out that the perimeter doubled. Alright? So when we doubled the length and the width, the perimeter doubled. Now, how does doubling the length and the width affect the area of the rectangle? Well, area here, 20. Area here, 80. Okay? 80 divided by 20 gives us 4. So area quadrupled. The area quadrupled or was multiplied by 4 times. And actually that will be the case every time when we are talking perimeter and area. If we double the lengths of sides, our perimeter will always double. If we double the lengths and widths for area, it's always going to quadruple. And here's the reason why, because remember we are in square units here. So if we double something in square units, we are squaring that, and that's where that 4 comes from. So square units and doubling, that means we're going to be 4 times as big. If it were triple the side lengths, it would be 3 to the second, it would be 9 times the area. So just something to think about, and we'll get into that later a little bit more. Alright, last problem here. I'm going to quickly go over 2 different ways to solve it. We want the area, or perimeter and area of this figure. Now notice that we have an issue because H and V, we don't know the lengths of those, so we have to figure those out. So if we're looking at V here, how do I figure out what that length is? Well, I'm going to look at 6 over here. We know that this is 6 high and this is 10 high. So 6 and V have to add together to get a 10. So V should be 10 minus 6, or 4. Same thing with H. We've got 5 here and 12 here. Well, 5 plus H has to equal 12. So 12 minus 5, we get 7 centimeters. So now we can add up all of our sides for perimeter. So we have 5 plus 4 plus 7 plus 6 plus 12 plus 10. So we've got 9, 16, 22, 34, 44. So perimeter, 44 centimeters. Now, we have a couple different options to find area. I'm going to show you what I think is the fastest way. Let's go ahead and find the area. Imagine that this piece was not missing. And we said this was 7 and 4. Let's imagine that this piece was not missing. Let's find the area of this full rectangle right here. So that would be a 12 by 10. Area of that whole thing would be 10 times 12, which would give us 120. Okay? But the thing is this piece really is missing. So what we can do is find the area of the missing piece and subtract it from the total rectangle area. So we have a 7 times 4 area here, which is 28. So if we subtract that from 120, we should get our area. So area equals 120 minus 28, and we should be getting, so 92. Sounds about right. 92 centimeters squared. Alright? So that's probably the fastest way to do it. The other way that we could have done it is we could have split this up into a green rectangle and a black one here. We could have found the area of this one, which would have been 20, 5 times 4, and this one would have been 6 times 12, which is 72. And what we could have done with those is added those together to get 92 again. So those are two different options for this type of problem. Probably the hardest one they had to do today. Alright, so that was our basis for our 8th grade lesson for lesson 8.